Well, Steve, we are now live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody that is joining us today. We appreciate all our friends and followers on Facebook and are thrilled to have our guest with us today. I'll introduce him in just a moment, but first I want to remind everybody why we're doing this. So when we launched this last month, our intent was twofold. Number one, to give all of our friends and followers the opportunity to better appreciate and understand the work of Achieve Brown County, but more so to better appreciate and understand that work through the eyes, ears, and amazing things that our partners are doing in the community. So again, as a backbone organization for community-led collective impact, Achieve Brown County convenes, facilitates, and supports how all of our many partners across all sectors advance positive cradle-to-career outcomes for young people. One of our longest and strongest partners happens to be the organization that this gentleman leads. I'm really pleased to welcome to our chat today, Steve Murley. Steve is the few months new superintendent of the Green Bay Area Public School District. He's officially been with us since early July, if I'm not mistaken, Steve, and as we'll talk about in just a moment, has obviously had an onboarding to his new gig here in Green Bay, unlike any onboarding that I'm sure he's previously experienced. And we'll, like I said, dive into a little bit of that as we go here. But welcome, Steve. Really, really happy that you joined us today. Thank you.
Excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. I should add that because the Green Bay Area Schools has been a longstanding partner of ours since Achieve Brown County's founding 6 years ago, Steve just recently joined our board of directors and executive committee as well. So through his involvement with both of those bodies in our organization, he's becoming more and more familiar with our work as we go. So Steve, again, welcome. Really, really pleased to have the opportunity to spend some time with you today and work with you as we move forward. As you know, I have prepared a list of questions that I'd like to ask you. And as interviews like this go, I hope you will entertain any follow-up questions that I may have. I promise they will be within the realm of what we previously discussed. I'll try not to throw you any curveballs or hit too hard here, but again, would really just like to spend this time getting to know you and the work of GBAPS through the eyes and ears of its superintendent. Does that sound good?
Sounds wonderful.
Awesome. So let's start with you specifically, Steve. My first question for you is simply, who is Steve Murley? So tell us about yourself, your background, what's most important to you in your life, personally and professionally, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I could run through my resume with you, but maybe I'll just give you a little formative moment. So my mom was an elementary school teacher. And I graduated from Oshkosh West High School. I went off to the University of Michigan. I was convinced I was going to be an engineer. I wound up eventually getting a degree in economics. I went out, I was doing some work in commercial banking and then in referendum work at the county level. And I had an opportunity to go back and spend some time as a teaching assistant in the econ department. And I remember calling my mom and saying, I think I'm going to quit working and go back and get a secondary teaching certification. And she just said, oh, okay. And I thought, you're not surprised. This isn't something that, you're saying, wait, what's going on here? And she said, no, I always figured you would figure that out about yourself. And I said, why didn't you tell me? And she said, I think that's something you needed to figure out on your own. So not an educator to start with. I was a slow learner is what I told her, but eventually figured out that I wanted to be a teacher. And I went back, I got my teaching certification. Absolutely loved teaching econ at the high school level. I also have a degree in history, so I had a chance to teach some U.S. history there. And I love teaching. So even though I'm a superintendent right now, I've been active for 20 years now, teaching at the graduate level. It keeps my saw sharp and allows me that opportunity to continue working with students. So teacher first and foremost, but really excited about this opportunity here in Green Bay.
Awesome. So here's where I'm going to go off script relative to something you and I were just talking about. Steve and I discovered before we went live here that we share a passion for the outdoors. Tell me a little bit more about that, Steve.
I was telling you that every year in October for 20 plus years now, I've taken the opportunity to take a week in October and go completely off the grid. So no cell phone, no email, no internet. Really, I tell people it's like rebooting your computer, right? They're the hard shutdown on your phone. And just a wonderful opportunity to be out and to recenter myself. That week in October has been out in Southeast Utah for the last 24 years. If you have never been out there, you actually can't see the constellations because there's so many stars in the sky out there. And just a real good opportunity to recenter myself and be with just my thoughts and not all the noise that is part of today's modern life.
Good for you. Good for you. And I know I don't need to tell you, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir in saying this, how important it is for all of us, young and old, to get outside for the very reasons that you described. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So you made notes of the fact that you were attracted to move to Green Bay. What specifically attracted you to not just our community, but this role that you now hold? And what ultimately led you to accept the position when it was offered to you?
So a couple things there. First of all, I know that many people know I was down in Iowa City for the last 10 years, but that was, I think someone on my team described that as what did she say? She said that was your Wisconsin break. So after I finished my teaching certification, I had the opportunity to work in school districts here in Wisconsin for the last 28 years. But before Iowa, I was in Wausau as a superintendent, and before that, I was down in Wisconsin Rapids, and before that, I was over in Neenah. So Wisconsin's always been home, and I really was looking for an opportunity as my kids got older and graduated from high school to come home, if you will.
Yep.
And so I was really interested to come back to Wisconsin. So why Green Bay? There were lots of positions that were open. This year, lots of larger districts that were open. What really drew me to Green Bay was the similarity of the challenges and opportunities that this district faces in comparison to what I had in Iowa City, what I had in Wausau. And really for me, I look for that opportunity to give back and help build up. And I thought that the experiences that I'd had over my career and during my time as a superintendent were really well suited to where Green Bay was at. Michelle did a wonderful job over the past decade, really moving the district forward. So always good to stand on the shoulders of giants. And so I thought that there was an opportunity for me to come in and leverage that experience and those skills that I have to help move the district forward.
That's great. Well, I know I speak for many of us that about the fact that we're pleased, very, very pleased that you've come back home and chose to apply everything that you've done and learned along the way in leading the Green Bay Area Public School District. So glad to hear that. That was your motivation as well. Not surprised by that based on what I have learned about you to this point. Has Green Bay met your expectations, both the community and the district? What have been your most notable impressions so far?
The people, absolutely 100% the people, whether it's staff in the district or community members. And you noted this at the beginning, been a bit of an odd transition
Right.
because you just simply don't have the chance. You meet a lot of people on tiny little screens on a regular basis. But it's still the people that I've had a chance to meet, both right back from the beginning through the interview process. And now that I've been on board here for 3 plus months, the staff, their commitment to our students and families in the community, and then the community's commitment to public education. That was a big part of, you asked what attracted me here. A big part of what attracted me was, for example, the work that you're doing with Achieve Brown County and recognizing that this community is all in on public education. And knowing that there are partners out there that are willing to step in and help do the heavy lifting, that makes it a much more advantageous opportunity to really move the needle and make a difference for kids. So has the district, you said, has the district and the community lived up to my expectations? Absolutely. It was clear from the get-go, from that first round of interviews, and then all that's been reaffirmed since I've been here.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that, and would echo everything that you just said about the people both in the community and at the district. As you know, we've been a partner again with the district for the past 6 years, ever since our founding, and have worked with some amazing people that are still there. And have benefited from their great leadership and support, both organizationally, as have all the young people that we are striving to serve directly as well. So 100% agree with you on that sentiment, Steve.
You know,
So,
I would offer, though, there's one place that hasn't met my expectations. So when I lived in Wausau, it was a whole whopping hour and a half over here to see Packer games on Sunday. So just a bit of a disappointment. My youngest kid was really looking forward. He's a freshman down at Madison, but he was really looking forward to the opportunity to come up and go to some games with Dad. So that'd be the only place where the expectations haven't been met yet. Certainly not the Packers' fault or the community's fault. We know what fault that lies with, but that's the only thing that hasn't met my expectations so far.
indeed, as a Packer fan myself, I share in your disappointments, as I'm sure the entire Packers organization does as well. We've all had to make some really tough decisions relative to everything that's going on. So let's dive into that a little bit more. As I said to start, as you just reiterated, your transition into this role in your first few months have been unlike any that I'm sure you've experienced, and or any that we've all experienced together. So tell us about how you've navigated all of that, and all the challenges that you and the district and we've all faced together, from COVID-19 to the conversations and social unrest related to Black Lives Matter and the racial justice movement. There's been a lot going on that we've all had to navigate, and in your role most especially as the leader of our county's largest school district. So how have you navigated all of that, Steve?
Well, I think it's been a significant challenge because it is so different than anything we've ever experienced before. You know, I've lived through SARS and MERS and 9/11 and all of those in leadership roles at the district level. And this is so very different because even in the midst of all of those challenges, education continued. Kids came to school, teachers taught, students learned, parents engaged. And even in the midst of all of the unrest that we had with the Great Recession back in 2008 to 10, school was a constant. And I think that there is a level of social reassurance for students and parents and staff in the community when those types of things continue. And now we don't have that. So we've lost a touchstone for our community. And that leaves a lot of people adrift, whether it's our kiddos or our staff, their families, all the new challenges that come with not being able to have school and public education as that constant is really disruptive to folks. And so it's certainly disruptive to me in my transition into this role. You know, we're a people business, whether it's our kids or our staff or the people in the community. The inability to interact with them has been my greatest challenge. I live and thrive off that energy that you get from being around all the people that make a difference, and not being able to do that. It's just tough. There's so many people inside the district that I haven't had a chance to meet personally yet. And that's a struggle then to develop relationships. And I think that's our capital, if you will, in public ed. And that's hard to do. You talked about some of the other challenges that relate to either the pandemic specifically. And obviously that's all of the health and safety issues, and really struggling to try to balance the needs of our kids and our staff in terms of safety versus their needs in terms of education, and recognizing that we're making lots of compromises in both areas. And none of them are good. You know, we know that kids learn best when they're in the classroom with teachers.
Right.
Anything less than that, that's not ideal. The social justice issue that you raised, you know, that's a really important one because we solve those problems when we're together collectively. We're not together collectively. So how do we work on that? Let's give you one quick example. The district has joined in a national initiative that's run through AASA, which is the American Association of School Administrators. So we partnered with multiple districts across the country on a 9-month journey. We meet monthly with them. And through that process, we're working on how to better address those social justice issues within our own educational communities, but being able to learn from a cross spectrum of districts across the United States about the challenges they have in their community, the things that they're working on to improve those. And we think that's an important part of what we're doing now, because we know when kids come back, when staff comes back, those issues won't have gone away. And we want to be prepared to address those at that time, and things that we can do between now and then to help us get ready for that.
Agreed. In fact, I couldn't agree with you more. I know your predecessor, Dr. Langenfeld, felt very strongly about this as much as you do, and I'm pleased to see, both as a partner and as a parent of 2 children in the district, and in the spouse of a employee in the district, a literacy coach, that the district under your leadership has continued to hit these issues head on and hold them at the core of what it's all about. And you're absolutely right about the fact that what it's going to take all of us to do is work collaboratively, collectively, as partners, as an entire community, to move the needle positively on all the issues to which you just so articulately spoke. So thank you for that. I would also say, just in response to your response to my question about navigating, and in particular the challenges that teachers are facing in their work as a parent. So I'm really going to take off my Chief Brown County hat and put on my parent hat of 2 students at one of the district's high schools. The teachers have really stepped up and done a great job at adapting and adjusting and modifying how they do what they do to best meet the needs of their students. And I know nobody's perfect. You've spoken about this very publicly, that there's a lot of improvement to be made across the board at all grade levels, to be sure. But the fact that teachers are still showing up and doing the very best they can to meet the needs of their students is really commendable. And as a parent, really appreciate that.
You know, the thing to think about with that is we are a learning organization. So it's really important to understand that means that we may need to pivot as we go through the process, because this is something no one's done before, right? No one's taken a district with 20,000 kids and just turned it overnight into an online education platform. So when we started this process back in July, when I got here, we optimistically were hoping that our online learning environment might need to last 2 or 3 weeks. We really were presuming that by October 1st, we were going to be back in session. And so we built a schedule that would have made it very smooth for kids to transition from offsite into some kind of blended model. We built it with a regular school day, almost with your bell periods built inside of that, expectations for student attendance and staff attendance and things like that. And it was really designed to make sure that we would have that quick, seamless transition. Given where we're at with community spread right now, while we're still hoping for the best, we're doing more planning for the worst. And right now I've got a couple of work groups that are taking a look at best practices in online learning and having some real serious conversations about what's the balance between synchronous, that is, I'm on the screen like you and I are right now, and we're physically present, and dialoguing with each other, versus asynchronous, which is maybe you've given me assignments that are paper and pencil based that I'm doing at the kitchen table, or maybe that I'm still doing on screen, but I'm not in this Zoom presence, and figuring out what does that balance look like. And so, you know, for parents out there, for students out there that may hear this, you may see some changes as we get to the new marking period, so that we can figure out a better balance. I told Spencer at the beginning, I think this is our 3rd meeting together in 2 days, and we were busy talking about Zoom fatigue and this online fatigue, and it's a real issue where the attention that's required to be present in these meetings is very different than when you're sitting in a classroom, or for those of us in the working world, sitting around the table in a meeting. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. That puts a lot of stress on our kids. It puts a lot of stress on our staff, lots of stress on parents. And So I think the expectation should be that we are regularly revisiting what we're doing, how we're doing it, content, delivery, student expectations, staff expectations, and we are doing that. And it's I would suggest that it's probably pretty likely that you're going to see some changes. They may be significant, they may be minor, depending on the classes that you're in as a kid, or the classes that you instruct as a teacher as we move into the new marking period. Because not only are we learning as an organization, but across the country, school districts are learning how to do this better. And so it's incumbent upon us to reach out and to understand from our peers what those best practices are and figure out how to put them in play here.
I don't envy the position in which you all find yourselves, having to implement and learn as you go. But I really do appreciate that mindset and approach. I know that mindset is exactly what your teachers and teachers in other districts and schools across our county are trying very, very hard to instill in their students, a growth mindset, a continuous improvement mindset. That's at the core of what we do. So again, I really, really appreciate hearing that from you. So let's look ahead. And I know this is hard to do, relatively speaking, but it's important. As you and I both know, as leaders of our respective organizations, we have to address what's right in front of us, and we've talked about that. But we also have to keep our eye on the future and make decisions relative to where we see ourselves going, or want to go, or need to go to do our very best work. So as you look to the future, Steve, what do you see as the district's top priorities? What are the opportunities for the district, both coming out of the pandemic and then well post pandemic?
I think there's a couple of things for us to think about, and one of those things is, if we're working for our students to be college, career, and life ready as they graduate, making sure that we are creating opportunities for them to do that. I'll come back and talk about that, because the second part of that is, we know that effective education takes place in that dyad between the teacher and the student. And so one of our district goals is the thriving workforce. I told you that Green Bay was a destination district for me. And I firmly believe that it can and should be a destination district for teachers and administrators from across Wisconsin, the Midwest, and the nation. And creating that thriving workforce that ensures that the best and the brightest are at the front of the class, and in all areas of our district operation, really gives our kids the greatest opportunity to succeed. And so we'll be working hard to make sure that that thriving workforce is front and center in the work that we do over the course of the next few years, and that this truly becomes that lighthouse, that destination district for people from throughout the nation and the state, and certainly here in Brown County. So working hard on that. What does that do for us in the classroom? Looking at those personalized pathways for students so that they can find, while they're in school, those things that they want to do when they get done. I said that it took me a while to get my bearings as I got out of school, through no fault of my high school or college education or my parents' guidance. But I do think that there are opportunities for us to help our children better frame their choices as they move forward, and make sure that they've got lots of opportunities to explore those, whether that's within our high school or through our turbocharge program at our area higher education institutions. I think we really have some wonderful opportunities to revision what school looks like. One of the things that you can look at is, you can look at it and say, what are the concrete priorities that we have for the next school year and beyond? And then we can actually say, okay, let's look even further afield. Time, for instance, has always been a fixed component of the equation in education, right? It's 8 hours a day, it's 50 minutes a period, it's 180 days a year. And one of the things that this particular pandemic may provide to us is an opportunity to say, what might it look like if time was a variable in the option? I know there are a lot of kids out there right now that have a high degree of concern that snow days are going away. Heard a little bit about that over the course of the past couple of days.
Discussed a few times in our family.
Yeah, I know. You wake up and you see your school district on the ticker at the bottom, and you go back to sleep till noon if you're a high school student, right? But I think that there's really an opportunity for us to say, okay, what if time has some flexibility in our model? And that'll require work with our State Department of Public Instruction and maybe our state legislature. So I think that it's incumbent upon us as educators in the system to look at the system as a whole and to say, yes, we're in crisis right now, but how might that crisis help us rethink what it is that we do? And how might that then create a different opportunity for our kids in years to come?
Great perspective. All of what you just said resonated with me. But as you were listing off some of the things that the district has done over the past number of years, turbocharged, for example, in the partners with whom you are doing that, NWTC, UWGB, there are partners as well, Chief Brown County's partners as well, and that made me think about how all of what you were just talking about isn't just specific to Green Bay area public schools. This is a community opportunity, and there are many great people and partners that are already at the table with you and with us that hold these opportunities high in their work. So I'm all that is to say, I feel like, and this goes back to what you said about one of the things that attracted you here, there's a spirit of investment in education and collaboration that really does make our community unique and positions us to do exactly what you were just talking about. And I'm grateful for that.
You know, when I looked at what was next for me, I always tell my kids I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. And when I said, okay, you know, the youngest is graduating from high school, I'm looking for that next career opportunity and challenge. Lots of places that we could have gone as a family, and lots of different districts that we could have considered in terms of next steps for me. And one of the things that I learned from my time in Iowa City was to look for a community that was both engaged in public education, which is one thing, but then engaged collaboratively, which is a very different thing. And so when I was going through the process of investigating Green Bay and I saw what Achieve Brown County was doing, it's not just the Green Bay Area Public School District, right? And it's not just NWTC and it's not just UWGB, it's how they're together. But then it even goes beyond that. It's what about Denmark and Wrightstown and Howard Swamico and Pulaski? Where do they fit into this? And recognizing that we are all working on the same goals.
Yep.
And how do we make sure that we work not just hard and harder, but that we work smarter? And so it's one of the reasons why, as I was going through that investigation process and deciding to apply here, you know, when you see something like Achieve Brown County, you don't find this everywhere. And I don't know if people know that or not. And if you haven't spent a lot of time somewhere else, you may not recognize that, but you don't find this everywhere you go. You know, I had great partners when I was in Iowa City, but it was really an Iowa City community collaboration, which was wonderful and strong. But we didn't have the outlying districts as actively participating in that work. We didn't have the systemic umbrella organization that Achieve Brown County presents to tie all of those pieces together. If you have to do that on your own, that's a lot of hard work.
Yep.
And oftentimes you don't have time to do it. So knowing that was already here, for me, that was a tipping point in applying.
That's great. And it really gets at the very reason for our Achieve Brown County's existence in this community, and the fact that we wouldn't exist but for that spirit that you described that has made it possible for us to exist and partner with so many entities, all 8 Brown County school districts for that matter, and advance this work collectively. So I couldn't agree with you more. One final question. I want to be respectful of your time, and we're almost at time, but it really dovetails into what you were just saying specifically about Achieve Brown County. So, you know, your predecessor, Dr. Lagenfeld, was an ardent supporter of our work. You have already demonstrated your support through the limited ways in which you've engaged with us, which I'm grateful for. I am limited by time, only that you've been in our community for a few months now. What are you most looking forward to in partnering with us and moving that partnership forward? What are you most excited about?
One of the things I'm really excited about, I said before, we're a learning organization, right? And so I know you are a learning organization. And what I'm really looking forward to the most is learning together. So as we identify challenges and having had the opportunity to sit in now on a few of the board meetings and exec meetings, and understanding the work and what's next for us as the Achieve Brown County organization, I can clearly see the learning orientation of the organization. And so I think that for us as a school district, there's a huge lever for us there, for us to grow our work in consolidated action with the rest of the organizations that are a part of Achieve Brown County. So you talked at the beginning about the cradle to career. And obviously within that cradle to career, that school district component is incredibly important. And so when I talk about the things that I'm most excited about in terms of our work with Achieve Brown County, it's how do we work together? How do we bring all of those organizations and those pieces together that really will serve our students best, and in the long run then serve our community best to move the whole community forward. Those are the things that I'm really most excited about when I look at this collaborative effort.
Awesome. Awesome. I don't have anything to add to that. So great way to wrap us up, Steve. Anything else you would like anybody to know about you, the districts?
I think the one thing I would remind folks, and I think it's more visible now more than ever, and we talked a lot about it in our conversation today. We know that the dyad where education takes place is with the student and the teacher. And that's really what's the magic of the district here. But I think it's also important to recognize in this particular time with the challenges we have in front of us, we've got over 3,500 employees that are doing amazing work for us. I'd call out our food service staff that have now delivered over 1.1 million meals in the community. And our director there, super creative, just created a new snack program there. And then our custodial and facilities team, they're doing an amazing job keeping these places safe and sanitized and allowing us to continue our work. Sometimes I think their work goes unnoticed, and I think it's really important that we give a shout out to them and really understand the value that they play, not just in our schools, but in the community as a whole.
Agreed. Thank you for saying that. We live right by Langley Elementary School, and every day we know there is a meal pickup. That 1.1 million number is startling, but it really gets at the impact that the district has had in that very important way on children and families that need that kind of help the most. So thank you for sharing that. Steve, thanks so much for taking time with us today. Just to wrap up here, for all of you that are watching, should you want to watch this all over again, Facebook will make it available on our feed. More so, if you'd like to share this with other friends, and we strongly encourage you to do so, please do that. I think Steve had a lot of great things to say today and would like as many people as possible to have the opportunity to hear directly from him. Thanks, Steve, again, really appreciate your time. And I have a feeling we'll probably see each other sooner rather than later, given our track record this week.
Probably this week, right?
Probably this week. Thanks again, Steve. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.